Hello aspirants, welcome to Introspection IS. In our ongoing series of prelims PYQs discussion on polity, we are going to begin a new topic today, that is amendments to the constitutions, and also we will discuss one more topic, that is local self-government. So kindly continue with us as we are carefully analyze this key topic in Indian polity to support your preparations for the upcoming examinations. So let's start the discussions. So we will discuss the very first questions. So the very first questions is from the, so as I have said that we will discuss the two key topics in this series. The first topic, we will start with the amendments of the constitutions. Clear? So the very first questions was asked from the amendments in 2024. So let's see the question. The question says, as per the Article 368 of the Constitution of India, the Parliament may amend the provisions of constitutions by way of, right? So the question is about what the power Parliament have under Article 368 through amendment. So how it can amend the constitutions? Does it has a power to add something into the constitutions? Does it have a power to vary or modify something, any provisions, such provisions of the constitutions, or does it, the Parliament has a power to repeal or delete any of the provisions of the constitutions? Right? So can it add to anything new into the constitution? Yes, it can do, as we can see that it by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which is also known as a mini constitutions. So it has added many new things, right? It has added into the preamble, if you see, and if you you also know that originally the constitution has only 8 schedule, right? But today we have a 12 schedule. So the 4 schedule were added by the later amendments to the constitutions, right? So yes, it can do, it can add. So in process of amending the constitutions, the Parliament has power to add new things to the into the provisions of the constitutions. So we can say that B cannot be the answer if we use the elimination method, right? Now, can it vary, can it modify the provisions of the constitutions? Yes, this has also the power that it has verified the provisions of Article 45 of the constitutions, that is related to educations, into the DPSP. It has verified the Article 19 Clause 1 of the Constitutions of the Fundamental Right, adding a cooperative society. So it has a provisions, it has a power under 368 to modify any of the provisions. So 2 is also our options. So A can be the answer, C cannot be the answer. Now if the last, can it repeal? If it has a power to repeal, that answer would be D. If not, then A is the answer. So can it repeal? It has a power to repeal or delete something from the constitutions. Yes, it has done many things, like if you see by the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act 1956, it has repealed or deleted the 7th part of the constitutions, part 7 of the constitutions deleted by the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act, or we can see another, that 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 31 is deleted from the fundamental rights. So yeah, it has also power to repeal the provisions or delete the provisions. So according to Article 368, the Parliament, in process of amending the constitutions, it can add, it can modify or variations made into the provisions, and it will also repeal or delete. So our answer to this question is all of the above is correct, that everything can be done by the Parliament. Now if you see the explanations to this questions, so Article 368 of the Indian Constitution grants the Parliament the power to amend the constitutions by way of additions, So Parliament can add new provisions to the constitutions, like 42nd Amendment Act 1976 added the word socialist, secular, integrity to the preamble. This is one of the examples we can see. It has a power for the variations, so Parliament can modify or alter existing provisions, like 97th Constitutional Amendment Act 2011 modified the Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause C to grant protections to cooperative societies. It has power to repeal also, so Parliament can delete or remove any part of the constitutions. Example, if you see by the 44th Amendment Act 1978, repeal the right to property as a fundamental right and made it an legal right or constitutional right. Constitutional right under Article 308. Clear? ठीक है. So Article 368, power of Parliament to amend the constitutions and procedures. So power to amend the constitutions, clause 1 of the Article 368 says that Parliament has authority to amend any provisions of the constitutions by adding new provision, modifying existing provisions, or removing certain provisions. This power is exercised in accordance with the procedure laid down in this article. Clear? So through the while amending the constitution, the Parliament has power to make changes into the constitution through these of the three ways. Clear? Let's move to the next question. So the next question was asked in 2022, and the question says, consider the following statement. Now there are the three statements given and we need to find the correct answer. Right? So let's analyze the first statement. So the first statement says, a bill amending the constitution requires a prior recommendation of the President of India. Does it require a prior recommendations? It means before prior recommendation means the President shall give its recommendations for introductions of the bill, or introduction of the bill into the house. Bill into the house. Clear? So does it required? No. The Article 368 does not allow the bill which is to amend the constitution requires a prior recommendations. So if you see that the first cannot be the answer, so by using elimination method we can say that our answer to this question is B. Just only analyzing, just only knowing about the first whether true or not. So if it is incorrect, so we can say that answer to this question is B. It means that 2 and third is true, right? Now if you see the second statement, why it is true. So when a constitution amendment bill is presented to the President of India, it is obligatory for the President of India to give his or her assent. So does the President is bound to give his assent? So yes, according to Article 111, which is in power of an assent power of the President. President. Clear? So he has three power under Article 111. The first, that he assent the bill. Second, withhold the assent. Alright, and it also says, alright, it can say next if you see that it can return the bill. Return the bill, not money bill. For reconsiderations of the house. Clear? Clear? So these are the options. But in case of amendment bills, he has only one power, that he has to assent. He is bound to give his assent. He cannot withhold his assent. That means he cannot use a pocket veto. He cannot use this pocket veto. Clear? Also he cannot return, or also he has no suspensive veto. Suspensive veto in case of amendment bills. He has only a power to assent the veto in case of amendment bills. Clear? And this has been given by the 368. Article 368 talks about an amendment which is a part in the part 20th of the constitutions. Clear? So second is true. Now if you see the third one, a constitutional amendment bill must be passed by both House, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha by special majority, and there is no provisions for joint sitting, as this is also true. So a special majority is required to pass, special majority is required to pass the amendment bills. But this special majority again has a two types of majority. So if the parliament is amending the part third fundamental right, or it is amending the part fourth DPSP of the constitutions, so for this it requires that it should pass with the majority of total membership of the house plus majority not less than two-third members present and voting. Present and voting. So this is required for the, if it wants to amend part third or part fourth of the constitutions. But if the parliament want to amend any federal character or provisions of the constitutions, like election of president, seventh schedule of the constitutions, any such kind of provisions is to be amended by the parliament, then it requires this special majority, that is majority of total membership of the house plus majority not less than two-third members present and voting, and then it will be, this is to be done by the both house in a separately. So this is done by the both house separately. It means there is a no provisions of joint sitting, no provisions of joint sitting. So article 108 does not apply to the 368. So right, and this majority has to be passed by separately by each house. When the each house pass this bill through a majority required, then it will be sent to the president for his assent. So president before assenting the bill, president before assenting the bill, it will be sent to the state legislature. Clear? And if more than 50% of the state legislature ratify this bill with simple majority, then the president will give his assent to the bill when it is to be amend the federal character. So yes, the third is also true in this respect. Clear? Right? Now if you see the explanations to these questions. So Article 368 talks about the power of Parliament to amend the constitutions, and procedure is also given. So clause 1 of the constitution clause 1 of the article says power to amend the constitution. So Parliament amend any provisions of constitutions through additions, variations, repeal. This power is exercised through a procedure outlined into 368. So according to 368, only Parliament has a power to amend the constitutions. Right? This means that the state legislature are not empowered to amend the constitutions, and no separate body formed for the amending the constitutions. Clear? So it is only by the parliament. It also means the constitutions cannot be amendment not through ordinance also. Right? So ordinance can also not amend the constitutions. Clear? So this is the clause 1 of the 368. Now clause 2, if you see the clause 2 of the 368, so it says procedure given for the amendment. So it says a bill for amendment can be introduced in either house of parliament. Right? It is not restricted only to the one house, but either of the house of the parliament can instate. A bill must pass by each house with majority of total membership of that house and a majority of two-third majority of the members present and voting. Once passed by Parliament, a bill is sent to the President, who must give his assent to the bill. It means it makes 368 makes it an obligatory on the President to give his assent, after which the amendment becomes part of constitutions. However, certain amendments also require ratifications by at least half of the states, and this is to be done by the simple majority before being sent to the President. Clear? Now, these are the process which requires an state ratifications given itself in the 368. So, if an amendment affects key aspects of governance, it must also approved by the half of the state legislature. So, which includes elections of the president, Article 3, Article 54, 55, power, elections and manner of the president, power of union and state government, 73, 162, 241, judicial and federal structure, part 5th, part 6th, chapter 1 of the part 11, 7th schedule, that is a list, union, state and concurrent, representation of states in parliament, right, that is related to the any provisions made in the elections of Rajya Sabha, amendment process itself, Article 368. So these are the certain provisions, or these are the provisions which requires a ratifications of half of the state through they can allow, or they can ratify it, or they can give their agreement to the amendments to the constitutions, right? Is judicial, and what about the judicial review and constitutional limitations? So clause 3 exempt amendment from the restrictions of Article 13, meaning amendment can override the fundamental rights. Clause 4 of the article says no amendments, even the fundamental right, can be challenged in court, reinforcing parliament authority, and declare that there is no limitations power amending the constitutions only, but there is only the doctrine of basic structure which comes under the restrictions of amending the power of parliament. Is it clear? Okay. Chaliye. Now let's move to the next question. So the next question was asked in 2019. Okay. So now let's see the question state. Consider the following statement and we need to find a correct answer. So the first statement says the 44th Amendment to the Constitution of India introduced an article placing the election of prime ministers beyond the judicial review. That is done by the 44th? No, it is not done by the 44th. Rather, it is done by 39th Constitutional Amendment Act 1975. Right. Now, the story behind, if you see the reason behind why this 39th Constitutional Amendment Act came, is that election of Indira Gandhi was challenged by the Raj Narayan. So in the Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan and elections, in which the Allahabad High Court has invalidate, or or we can say that in which it called the invalidated the election of Indira Gandhi. Yeah. So Allahabad High Court has struck down the election of Indira Gandhi. So she challenged this into the Supreme Court. So before the Supreme Court gave a judgment into the Indira Gandhi, the government come up with the 39 Constitutional Amendment Act 1975, and through this act, the 4 elections, that is of the President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker, were kept beyond the preview of beyond the preview of beyond the preview of judicial review. This was done by the 39th. But this act has repealed by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act after emergency was ended. It's clear. So this the first statement is incorrect. So this cannot be our answer and this cannot be also answer. Clear? Now the second says the Supreme Court of India struck down the 99th Amendment to the Constitution of India as being violative of the independence of judiciary. Yes, it is true. So this has been done, this 99th Constitutional Amendment Act. Through this act, the government has added a new provisions which is known as a National Judicial Appointment Commissions, right? And this commission is replaced the collegium systems. systems, right? And so this act was challenged in a court, and the Supreme Court in NJC Act case says that this is an violative of two provisions. So this was invalidate or called unconstitutional on the basis of violations of two provisions, right? The first is independent nature of judiciary, and this is an basic structure of the constitution, so it is violating the basic structure of the constitution also. And on the second hand, it is also violative of article 50 of the constitution, which says that the separation of executive from judiciary. Clear? So this is also this 99 is also violating the Article 50 of the Constitution, and this becomes the base for calling it as an or striking down the constitutional amendments or unconstitutional. Clear? So the answer to this question is B. Only second is true. Okay. Now, if we see the explanations, so it says that the 39th Constitutional Amendment Act 1975 was enacted during the emergency period in India under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The main purpose of this amendment was to protect the positions of Prime Ministers and other high officials like President, Vice President and Speaker of the Lok Sabha from judicial scrutiny regarding election disputes. The amendment barred the Supreme Court and the High Court from questioning the elections of President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker of the Lok Sabha. It transferred the power to decide such election disputes to the Parliament instead, right? So in place of the Judiciary, Supreme Court or High Court, this power has now, through the 39th Constitutional Amendment, given to the Parliament. Yeah? But this was repealed by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978 after emergencies ended. Clear? Now if you see, so because on this ground we can say that the first statement is incorrect. Now if you see the second statement, so 99th Constitutional Amendment Act 2014 was enacted to establish a national judicial appointment commissions, replacing the collegium systems for appointing judges of Supreme Court and High Court. Now if you see the composition, so NJC comprises Chief Justice of India as a chairperson, two senior most judges, Supreme Court judge, Union Law Minister, which is an executive, and this becomes a ground, right? Two eminent persons nominated by the committee, including Prime Minister, CGI, and leader of oppositions. So this is also eminent, will be where an interference of executive will be there in this appointment, and this is the ground on which the NJC was called unconstitutional, because it is violating you can say this provisions, clear, of independent nature and Article 50. So in 2015, the Supreme Court declared NJC unconstitutional, citing it violated the independence of judiciary as guaranteed by the basic structure doctrine. So this restored the collegial system for judicial appointment. Clear? Let's move to the next questions. Next question was asked in 2013. Now again the two statement is given. So consider the following statement and we need to find the correct answers. So the first statement says an amendment to the Constitution of India can be initiated by an introduction of bill in the Lok Sabha only. So is Article 368 talks that the bill related to amendment can be introduced in Lok Sabha? No, this is incorrect. So the first cannot be the answer. Is it clear? And C also cannot be the answer. It can be introduced in either house. So amendment bill can be housed in the either house of Parliament. Clear? Next says, second statement, if such an amendment seeks to make changes in the federal character of the constitutions, the amendments also requires to be ratified by the legislature of all the states of India? No, it's also not true. Why? Because it does not require that all the states should ratify it, but more than half of the states should ratify it. More than half of the states should ratify with the simple majority. So if you see that not all, so this is also incorrect. So second cannot be. The answer to this question is D, that is neither one nor two is correct. So both are incorrect statement. Now if you see the explanations to these questions, so it says Article 368, which is a power of Parliament to amend the Constitution procedure. So Article 368 grants Parliament the authority to amend the constitutions and outlines the methods for making changes while maintaining the basic structure of the constitutions. So first says power of Parliament to amend the constitutions. So Parliament has the power to add, modify or repeal any provisions. However, amendments must follow the prescribed procedure to ensure stability and integrity. This already we have seen this. This question was I have discussed into the repeated in last year also and in the subsequent year also, clear, or previously this has been also been repeated. So what are the procedures to amendment of the constitution? So it says amendments can be introduced as a bill in either house of parliament, that is Lok Sabha or Raj Sabha. So it does not say that it can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. So on this ground the first is incorrect. Second, a bill must be passed by special majority, that is majority of total membership and at least 2/3 of the members present and voting by the parliament separately by the each house. Right? No joint sitting is allowed. In federal character of constitutions, amendment requires ratification by at least half of the state. Clear? So not all of the state, but at least by the half of the state. So because this also because of the term all, it makes it incorrect. So the answer is D. After approval, the bill is sent to the president for action, who must give his approval that he has no veto power or he has no, you can say that he cannot return the bill also or he cannot use a pocket veto. He is bound to give his assent. Okay? Now let's move to the next question. So this the last till 2013 was the last one. Questions from the amendment was asked. Now the next questions will be from the local self government. So as uh, I told you that we are going to take two of the topics in the questions because of there are very few questions related to these two topics. Yeah. So let's discuss the local self-government. So the question was asked in 2017. So the question says local self-government can be best explained as an exercise in. So local self-government best explained means what does the local self-government objective, what does it want to stabilize? Does it is an objective of federalism or democratic decentralizations, administrative delegations or direct democracy? So local self-government is a best example of democratic decentralizations where the power is given to at the bottom. Each people is to be participations and it is to be done through the deep democratic decentralization that the people at the lowest level should also be given power to decide what the laws and government they want to be, right? So local self, if you see the explanations to these questions, so it says local self-government refers to governance at a grassroots level, allowing local bodies like Panchayat and Municipality to manage their own affairs. It is a form of democratic decentralization, meaning transfer of decisions making power from central and state government to the local governing bodies, ensuring people's participations in governance. The 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act 1992 established a structured system of local self-government in rural, that is rural local self-government in the form of Panchayati Raj. In urban, like an urban, through urban local self-government, example is municipalities, area, strengthening grassroots democracy. Is clear? Okay? So it is not federalism. Why? Because federalism system of government in which power is divided between central, that is union, and regional, provincial or state government. It ensures that both level of government operates independently in their respective sphere while also cooperating in the matter of national importance. ठीक है? So it cannot be administrative delegations because it refers to the process by which a higher authority transfers certain powers, duties or responsibility to lower authority or subordinate within an organization of government. This is done to improve efficiency, decision making and workload. So this is a kind of where the power is been given, delegated by the higher authority. So the lower authority does not have an independent of power, right? So that why the direct democracy cannot be the answer, because it is a form of government in which citizens directly participate in the decision making, rather electing a representative to make decisions on their behalf. It allows people to have a direct say in laws, policies and governance through mechanism like referendum, initiative and recall. And why the direct democracy cannot be answered, this is also the second reason is that India follows an indirect democracy, that is through also representative democracy. Clear? So this cannot be also the direct democracy cannot be also the answer to this questions. ठीक है?